We're about to make some beautiful braised short ribs with honey, peppercorn, and chocolate. Okay, so first thing first, I'm going to show you how we clean the short ribs. I have my short ribs here. So we want to clean that again. I'm going under with my knife here. I'm going to cut it up this way. Okay. Okay, so here I remove enough and turn that over. Now I'm going to remove the skin here under it again, going this way. See? You remove everything like that. When I do that, my knife is on an incline here, see, so I don't remove too much meat. An incline on the fat, so I kind of am scrapping it off. Yeah, I'm going to remove that here. Okay. So again, if there's a little bit of fat left, it's not a problem. That's going to melt as it cooks. Okay. So we have our short rib cleaned up here. Now I'm going to cut them. I'm going to cut in between the bones here. Try to cut in the center as much as possible. So after we clean our meat, we're going to tie it. I'm taking a nice piece of twine here, put the meat like this on it, and I'm going to make what we call a butcher nut. I'm going to go once and twice. Butcher nut, now many of you should know what I'm talking about. Then I'm going to twist it like that to keep it tight, and then finish it this way. Cut the excess of string. And here you have your tied short rib. So I have more to do like that. Again, you take your piece of meat, put it down like that, come up with your string, you go twice, double loop, twist it, and tie it. The string again is here to keep the bone here contacted to the meat as it cooks. So we are now going to season the short ribs nicely here with some salt and pepper. Okay, so now I'm going to brown my meat. All over here, I'm going to brown everywhere, and then I will add the vegetable. So we're going to cut those vegetables into mirepoix. Remove the stem here. Up. Tomatoes going to go last in it, huh? So I'm just going to add those tomatoes up here. My carrot. Quarter it and cut it nice chunk like that. I see that my oil is ready, it starts to smoke, so I'm going to add some meat to it. So you can hear that nice sizzling, huh? Don't overcrowd the pan, huh? I'm going to do 2 batches here. Okay, now I'm going to remove the meat. Okay, look at that here. You see all that? That's not burnt, that's nice and brown. So I'm going to degrease that for now. Those are beautiful sucs, huh? We call them. I don't want to lose them, they're nice, they're not burned. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my vegetable on it here, my mirepoix. I'm going to let it set like 30 seconds because it's going to steam on that, and that's going to release onto my vegetable. And it's a kind of deglaçage, but instead of using another liquid, I'm using the actual liquid from that mirepoix. You'll see how's that going to come out in a moment. So now it's on a low heat. I'm just going to let it set like that. I'm not going to even touch it, so they grab those sucs on the bottom. Okay, I'm going to stir it a little bit now. And you can see already, you see how it's cleaning up? Okay. All those sucs are going into my vegetable, which is great. Now I'm going to brown that mirepoix a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit more. That when I degreased it, I kept the fat here, some of it, but I'm going to add back to it because now it's a little dry. And you see how everything is coming up. Like I just washed that part here. See that? So nice and clean now. Now I'm going to bring the heat higher and add a little bit more fat back to that to brown it. Now I'm going to brown them. When I said brown, you know, I just want to give it a little color. They're not really actually going to be too brown. I'm just kind of sauteing them for them to release some flavor before adding back the meat to it. I'm going to show you now how we make our crushed peppercorn. Okay, I'm going to take that parchment paper here. I'm going to fold it into an envelope. I'll fold it like that. I'm going to sit it on the side this way. Okay, do the same here. Now I'm going to take my peppercorn. I'm going to put it into the bag here. I'm going to close it this way. Make sure it's sealed well. And now I'm going to take my pounder here. If you don't have that, you can use the bottom of a saute pan, but you use the edge, the flat edge of it on the bottom, and you will crush it this way. As I crush, that's moving forward like that. Now, to crush them well. See? Okay, and this is how you make a mignonette. How to make a mignonette. Then you open your envelope and you can see that all those peppercorn have been crushed. Okay? Back to our mirepoix here. See, that's browning well. That's good enough. So now to that, I'm going to add my honey. Okay? I have a cup of honey here. I'm going to add that to it. Like that. And I'm going to add, I will say, a nice tablespoon here of that crushed peppercorn. Tablespoon and a half. Okay? And then we're going to let that cook nicely together. I want my honey to caramelize a little bit. What is nice is at the end when I'm going to use that, you know, for my sauce, because my sauce is going to be the reduced liquid from the stew. And as I'm going to reduce it further later on, that's going to create a great glaze at one point on my short ribs. Okay, so I cooked that for a couple minutes. I'm going to add now my red wine. I'm going to let it come to a simmer now. I can add now the tomato and also my tomato paste. I'm going to add the meat back in now. When it's come to a boil and you just want a simmer, when you cook a stew, you always need to just simmer. If it boils too much, your meat will get tough because the meat will retract, the meat will shrink very fast, and then it doesn't allow the meat to relax, I will say, and be tender. So important, not too much agitation when cooking your short ribs or when doing your braised. So I'm going to add my veal stock here a little bit to kind of cover it. Make sure it comes again to a boil. Then I'm going to put a lid on it and let it cook. Oh, and one thing, of course, the bouquet garni here. So it's coming to a simmer now. I'm going to lower the heat and I'm going to let it cook gently. But first, see, there's all that skim on it here. We want to kind of remove that now. We're going to skim that to remove that little foamy part here that we don't want. Those are, I would say, you know, a little bit of fat, a little bit of the impurity of the meat that's releasing right now. And we skim it off. This is to allow us to get after a sauce that's gonna have a better texture. Now I'm gonna cover it with my lid. So me here, this is a pressure cooker, okay? It helps to cook things a little faster. And I'm gonna use that, so they should be cooked, I would think, here in 30 minutes with that pressure cooker. If you don't have a pressure cooker, you just use, you know, put a regular lid on it. It's just going to need to cook more. I would say around now 145 minutes to 2 hours. You have to check on the doneness. You know it's done when the meat starts falling off the bone. Okay, so I'm going to check and see if that's cooked. It's completely tender. I can feel it with my finger here. I'm going to remove the meat and the vegetable and I'm going to degrease. See that fat? All that is fat here. So I need to degrease that fat before I reduce the liquid here, because if not, the fat will emulsify with the liquid if you just remove it, reduce it all together. So it needs to be, how we said in French, dépouiller. Nous allons dépouiller ce jus là. Degreased. Okay? So, first thing, I'm going to remove again the vegetable and the meat. This is called décanter. Nous allons décanter la viande. So we'll remove the meat now, delicately, because it's very fragile. And what's important is we want to make sure that we don't leave that meat too long without any liquid on it, or the meat will dry. When you do a braise or a stew, it's very important to keep the meat in some juice as much as possible. If you let them out of the juice, they will dry, and then you will feel it after when you eat them. So here, to keep them from drying, because I need to reduce that juice, I'm going to put a little plastic wrap on top of it, so it's going to keep them from drying out too. Okay, when you remove all that, we're going to strain everything. Okay, and now I'm going to remove that bouquet garni here. And me, I like to keep all those vegetables my meat cooked in. In a restaurant situation, we may strain all the vegetables, discard them, and present, you know, different baby's vegetable maybe, or other vegetable that we had cooked separately. They look better for presentation. But here, family style, I'm going to keep those because I love them, and it won't bother me. So I'm going to skim them out like that, and I'm going to place them on top here of my ribs. Oh, before I do that, I'm going to remove the string. Actually, I'm going to remove the string. You can use scissors, or I'm using a knife here. I'm going to remove all those strings. You have to be careful when you remove them. Make sure the knife is sharp if you're using a knife, because you don't want to tear on that string. It needs to cut, you know, into it easily, so you don't remove the bone from the meat. Beautiful short ribs here. Oops. Okay, now those vegetables are going on top. I'm going to cook some nice pasta to go with that. I'm going to make some nice fresh pasta. That should be very good. We have some friends coming over tonight. I hope they enjoy. Now you have to watch for those peppercorn. If you see you have a lot on one piece of meat, you may want to remove them. So if that person is his first bite, it's not going to be too strong. The peppercorn, most of them, they stay behind in the sauce. I'm going to strain that out now. That mignonette. Okay, so now we're going to strain it into a fine chinois. I'm straining that juice. And I'm going to let it reduce to a nice thick consistency for that dish. And I'm going to degrease it at the same time. So I'm going to cover that with another dish here like that, so it kind of steam and doesn't dry out. It's very important again, but it doesn't dry. You could use plastic wrap too to put on top of it till your sauce is done, and you can add it to your dish. Okay, so now we want to degrease. We want to remove all that excess grease here on top. I'm going to use a ladle, and I'm just going to go around like that, getting my fat. I'm going to show you, I'm just thinking about it, another trick that works very well to degrease. Is if you have some parchment, and I'm going to run the parchment through a sauce this way, and only the fat should stay on the parchment paper. And then I will turn it over and do the same process. And you'll see how much fat I'm going to remove here, a lot. Do a close-up. So here we go. You hold it, and you run it through this way. This is better than absorbent pepper because you can run it. See all that fat here? You see all that? You can run it on the other side. Now. And this is a great way also to degrease. You see all that fat that I removed? I'm going to do it one more time, and it should be fine. Et voilà. A lot of the fat is gone. It's still a little bit, but you know, it's gonna be okay now. I will run an extra marine. I'm gonna test it. See how that little broth tastes like right now. Little jus. It tastes like honey. There's a little hint of peppercorn coming down the throat. Nice, not too strong at all. It's gonna get a little stronger though as it reduces down here. But for now it's a nice base. It's a nice start. So here I have some chocolate. I'm gonna add to that. Bittersweet chocolate. I'm gonna let it melt inside. I'm going to let it melt inside and stir it in, you know, stirring the pan so it kind of binds with everything here. Then I'm going to finish it up with a little slurry. If needed, I'm going to check. Yes, it's good. The chocolate is not too strong, you know, but it's there. And it brings a great flavor that goes very well with beef. Now if you make your bœuf bourguignon, you know, you could add also a little bit of, finish it with a little bit of chocolate. Chocolate and red wine, which we have here also, and imagine with honey, it's a very good combination. Don't let it boil too much after you add the chocolate. Chocolate doesn't like too much heat when it's to a sauce. I'm very happy with the result here. I'm going to do a little slurry. That's some, again, this is some arrowroot. Not too much. I have half tablespoon of arrowroot here. I just add a tablespoon of water to it. Now I'm going to stir that together and we're going to do what we call a slurry. This is a slurry right here. And we're going to thicken our sauce with it. So it's thick. I don't need to add that much. I'm not going to add all that. I'm going to add half of it. I think is going to be enough. Now after you add the slurry, you need to bring it to a simmer, a quick simmer, to activate that starch a little bit into the sauce. I see you needed a little bit more salt. Coat my spoon well. It's a very nice consistency right now. I'm going to turn it off and it's ready to be served. I assure you, this is very, very, very good. Very good. Okay, I'm going to take my plate here. I'm going to put some of that beautiful sauce on top of it. Just like that. Oh, that sauce is gorgeous. That top of it here. Beautiful. Oh, yes. And what I'm going to do later on when we're ready to eat, I'm just going to flash that into the oven, cover with a foil for 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes on a low heat, 280 degrees, it's good. I'm gonna finish it up with a little bit of parsley and chopped rosemary that I'm gonna sprinkle on top of it. Chop it up like that, and then a little bit all over here like that. This is good, nice little color, little brightness. That's ready to be served now. Here we go. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that little demonstration on how to make some braised short rib with honey, mixed peppercorn and chocolate sauce.